All right, so hey, Tuli,
Yeah.
this is where you are.
Well, yeah.
We're right here in New York, okay?
That little circle.
This is a map of the world. You see this world
It's flat,
here?
though. The world is round.
It's one of the few maps
This is
where
the
the
virtual.
Union of Soviet Socialist Republics still exists. It's actually an old Pentagon map,
Really?
which we can't afford to replace. You're in
Where's the,
you're in the offices of
where's the
Global
Chinese
Vision.
embassy?
You're in the offices of Global Vision. We're an independent TV
Are
company
we going?
based here in New York.
We're going already. We want to remind you that, that this is not Saturday Night Live. And we're Revolting News. Norman Savitt's behind the camera, and we're here with Danny Schechter continuing our voyage into the modern media, and we're at Danny's co-op, Global Vision, on Upper Broadway in the city of New York.
And you are?
I was Tuli.
Well, there you go. Everybody's been introduced. We're in the office. We're doing this kind of neat Saturday Night Live open, okay, is what it's called. We're going actually into the office. I'm showing Tuli
Now,
around.
this guy is, now, that's right. Now, we're
Tuli,
with,
this
we're
is a
with a
desk.
very competent video maker, and he's going to, this
Well, we're
will
gonna
also
try
be a
to.
lesson on how to make
Come with us.
radical.
Mitch? Yeah. Can we see something here? So we can see something, because we're on TV right now. This is one of our edit rooms, so we're doing a film in here about Nelson Mandela. That's Mitch. Say hello, Mitch.
Hello. Hi, Mitch. How are you?
And so this is a,
Want me to put something up?
yeah, a documentary about Nelson Mandela that we're actually...
Have you either your hard identification or yellow chip on the throat?
Yes, sir. You guys please on the other side.
Tell us why you come here.
Oh, we're here to meet Nelson Mandela.
Who is he? Why is he important?
He's the president of the Republic of South Africa.
It's a real joy, a kind of real pleasure we have to see Madiba, Nelson Mandela here speaking, and all of Harvard turning out to give him this honorary degree, and the same institution that was involved in his repression.
And these are our edit rooms for Global Vision. And through here, this is part of our archive. Oh yeah.
Wait.
Over here, this is Brian. Brian is editing something. Wow. Over here, and working on a project.
What is it?
He's doing a program about. Tell him what you're doing, Brian.
I'm logging an interview right now.
What is the show about?
Oh, it's a show to raise awareness and some funds for a nonprofit in Brooklyn. It's an organization that provides multiple services for children 0 to 3 that are developmentally slow. They're trying to raise some money, and they're also trying to raise awareness to the public as well as to the politicians to the important services which they provide.
But the city doesn't pay.
Well, the state pays for it now, but there's always threats of removing the funds.
Oh, it's good to be threatened. Put you on your, put those kids on their toes. They'll have to learn how to recover.
No continúa más contento.
We're walking through here. Are you recording, Norman?
Yes.
And we're coming into our conference room.
Yes.
Okay, sit down.
Feel free to say intelligent things at any time.
Okay.
Don't wait for me. So you have some awards, a couple of awards in there.
Get this, is this a K-hearing? Get that. I love the way
Got it.
I love the way the copyright label gets on the radical materials. Talk about the contradictions, but it's on the herring. The only thing is that I've seen it, his logo, some of his drawings on the resist, those marvelous on the elite list, they use one of his drawings as a logo, and always has the copyright. So that was one of the
If you get any more awards, you might want to build another shelf,
so
you know?
now, how is the,
Let's let him,
what are you,
let's let him plug in. Are you going to plug in on this mic?
are you getting in? Are we taping now? If you want to find out more about Danny's history and you want to hear some more of his repartee, it's all in this exciting, well-written book about his adventures in media land and in the world in general. And it's published by 7 Stories Press. The title is The More You Watch, The Less You Know. And I'm always reminded of one of my favorite comedians of the 30s or 40s on radio, Joe Penner, who his favorite expression was, "You can't fool me, I'm too ignorant." And Danny's is a more elegant way to put that. So, how old is the company, and
Well,
what are your current projects?
We've been going for 11 years. We're trying to do programming that has some sort of socially relevant value and purpose. We do a lot of different types of programs. And we're working right now, I'm working on this film about Nelson Mandela, hero of the world, Hero for All is what it's called. It's about his, as he steps down as president of South Africa, a look at how he has affected people all around the United States and all around the world. That's one project that we're doing. We're developing a film about Allen Ginsberg and the poem Howl, in which you feature, I believe, or an inspiration of at least part of that poem. No?
It's a desperation part of it. Yeah, I'm featured as a desperation. Not featured, I'm an incidental character in the desperation of that poem. I must come back to Mandela, and it's how do you handle, or how can you handle, or what's your opinion of all the terrible things that, in spite of all our best wishes, are happening and have happened in South Africa?
Well, South Africa, you have to look at the situation from the starting point. In the case of South Africa, 40 years of an apartheid system that enforced racism, that divided people by law, but excluded the majority from participating, from being involved, and being able to vote, being able to take part in anything. They had a heroic struggle, which was successful. They negotiated peaceful transformation, but they did so with the people who were running the old show, if you will. And so there was an uneasy sort of partnership. They didn't prevail on their own terms. They didn't march into Johannesburg as a liberating army. They had to make a deal. They made a compromise, and that compromise means that a lot of the people who were wealthy and who had power and who had money still have wealth, power, and money. And there's still a form of apartheid in the sense that there's still a tremendous gap. I think Mandela has done a great deal to bring people together in that country.
Well, I was talking, and I'll have to compare it to what happened in the Soviet Union. I was not arguing for equality of the races in a terribly exploitative system, but I thought there was a promise of, his allies were communists, so I thought there was going to be a progress toward a more just society that is a democratic, not a social democratic, but a democratic socialist society, the way we had hopes for the Soviet Union. Now, in the Soviet Union, there were two things, I think. First of all, the rest of the world tried to crush it, and it took them some time, but they did, or they started to crush it early. So whatever defects there were at the beginning in the programs of Lenin, who was no saint, became the programs of Stalin and...
I don't see how you can compare, Tuli, Stalinism to Mandela. I mean,
no,
we don't have
I'm
people
not,
being rounded up and put into gulags in South Africa.
No, just the black South Africans are killing each other, that's all.
Well, the black South Africans are not killing each other.
There's 140 murders a day there.
What is the basis of crime, Tuli, in any society?
Yeah, I know, I'm telling you.
It's economic deprivation.
Yeah, I know, I believe that, but I'm saying it's a tragedy that this has happened, and you don't expect to make sacrifices for something like that.
Now, I think it's a very unrealistic.
Yeah, well, let me continue with this. So I'm not saying that Mandela's a Stalinist, and that's a Stalinist society. On the contrary, it's more like it's developing into a capitalist society, as far as I can see. Maybe like China, that still uses the language of communism while it's exploited, while a rich or up ruling class. So there were two things. The rest of the world crushed any possibility for good development in the Soviet, and I think it's doing that in South Africa, unfortunately. And the other thing is that...
well, we did a film on...
Wait, let me just finish. One more point. Please. The character structure of people who were making the revolution, the Soviets were going to create the new man, however, or new human. However, they neglected to remember that the people who were going to create the new humans were the old humans with all the defects, and you have the defects, and you have the same thing in South Africa. Now, I admit I don't have the answer, but I think we should be realistic. I mean, I do have a theoretical answer, which is democratic anarchism, but that's a little distant from that. But we have to at least admit that these things are happening that we didn't like, and that.
But people with illusions get disillusioned easily. You know, if you think that change in the world is like an Alka-Seltzer tablet, where you put it in water, it fizzes, and suddenly you feel better. Yeah. I don't think that's the way it works.
Do you think that a million people died in the Algerian Revolution? You know what they got there? They got a terrible state now. But an Algerian peasant boy can now become an oil engineer. Was that worth a million dead people?
Well, I think, you yourself just said it. People don't make history always on the terms that they choose. The fight against colonialism led to other dictators in some instances. It also is part of a process of liberation and emancipation.
I don't know if
and change doesn't happen. It's never perfect. It doesn't meet, perhaps your standards. But I think that to the ordinary people in South Africa, I think they're much happier to have a democratically elected government than a government that basically excluded the majority of people. We're in an era of globalization, global capital. And global capital shapes the terms under which people can develop. South Africa has tried to make a deal, in a sense, to develop through so-called free market approach, and they're in fact not making great progress. But that's not their fault, I don't think.
Well, it's not their fault, except that people, since it's the same people that are changing, people are misled in thinking that there were people who still think Stalin was the great red father, and that expression, if only Stalin knew. It goes back, all these horrible things that are happening. Oh, if the Tsar only knew, oh, if God only knew.
Well, that's not what you're saying, Tuli. You're saying that there's no hope in the world, that you can't have change.
No, I'm just saying you have to realize that this is not all bliss and not all wonderful things. And I wonder, I have to ask you: Is this in your film?
Look, I have three chapters.
Is it in your film?
Wait a minute. Let me just answer that. I have 3 chapters in my book about covering South Africa over 30 years and dealing with all the contradictions in the new South Africa as well. I first went there in 1967, in very dark days of apartheid, when Mandela was first going to prison. I've been back many, many times, and I write about not only my coverage of South Africa, but the coverage of other people and what wasn't being reported about the situation there. What I'm reporting on now is that people need heroes, they need role models, they need people to turn towards, to look up to in a way. But they also have to realize that a lot of those heroes have feet of clay and are also have contradictions in them. I'm not arguing that people should turn to Nelson Mandela as their savior any more than they should turn to Jesus as their savior necessarily. Maybe many people believe that they should, but I'm not making that argument. I'm a journalist. I'm reporting on what happened. Nelson Mandela came to America and had a certain response and reaction and reception from people. And I talked to the people who came out to see him and what they think about him, and also about some of those contradictions, about David Rockefeller welcoming him to New York, about Harvard giving him a degree after for many years Harvard refused to divest its investments from South Africa. No, we're telling that whole story in this film, and our reporting on South Africa over the years, the series South Africa Now, I think, dealt honestly with what was happening there, including the contradictions, including many of the controversies about South Africa. So I'm not a propagandist for any one person, but what I am saying is that I've seen change happen in my life, just as we have. The civil rights movement brought about change. Has it ushered in a total new age? Absolutely not. Are there still problems? Absolutely. We fought against the war in Vietnam. The war in Vietnam ended. Vietnam was devastated as a result, but I think I was just back to Vietnam, and I found more hope there, in a way, than I expected to find. And, you know, I've seen apartheid fall in my lifetime, and I think it's because people struggled to change it. And what I'm trying to do in the media field is create programming that helps people see some of these problems. We did a series called Rights and Wrongs for 4 years, human rights program. We did our piece on Kosovo in June 1993, saying that this was was going to be the biggest problem in the Balkans, that there would be horrible ethnic cleansing there. Nobody was paying attention, not the media makers, not the policy makers. We also reported on heroes. We reported on people who inspire other people to get involved in processes of change. You know, Brecht said something about, woe be the people who need heroes. Well, I think we all need some sort of inspiration, because the media today is so filled with scandal, with sensationalism,
We'll be the people
with
who won't
garbage.
need heroes, did he?
Pardon me? You're a media hero to many people, Tuli.
Yeah,
You
well,
represent a tradition of resistance and dissident thought in America. I would rather have people reading your work and admiring what you have to say than watching, MSNBC.
Yeah, well, it's not just a question of the heroes. But anyway, I've got your point, and a lot.
Am I too passionate
well
on this?
taken. No, you're not passionate enough. No. So where will we see this new?
Well, our new film is being made for a company in South Africa. Hopefully, it will get on the air.
Is
you
it
know, it's going to be an hour film, an hour feature documentary.
So, like, how do you go about getting it on American air?
Well, this has been a big struggle. What we've found is that, American media is more interested in Monica than in Mandela. That it's been harder and harder to get programming about matters of substance on the air. And that's why I'm involved in writing books like this, criticizing the media system, to try to get people involved to realize that the media has to be held accountable, that it has to be changed.
So you don't have an American distributor?
Well, right now I'm doing this for a South African company. I'm just
Okay,
hired
so
to do
all right,
this.
so now that leads us to the last part of what I think we should discuss.
But Tuli, I've had
meeting.
156 weeks of programs on American television about South Africa. I've had most of my films shown on American television about South Africa, and I think this film will be shown also because it's good and it's interesting.
So
I think
that
people will
was
want
on,
to see it.
a lot of it on PBS and one
I'm not
other
sure.
network.
I'm not sure where it will be seen.
No,
but
I mean what you've gotten.
a lot of it on PBS. We've also gotten programming on, cable channels, Cinemax and others. We're struggling to get programming on the air.
When you get it on PBS on one of the major networks, another network will never use it?
Probably not. I mean, it's very difficult to get
That's sort of
programs
stupid,
with
isn't it?
progressive
Yeah.
content.
No, I mean
on
that
the air.
that you sign an exclusive.
Well, you may
They
give them a
want that, I
license
guess.
for a few years. I mean,
I see.
I mean-
All right, so let's discuss American media
Well,
or
that's what I'm doing.
worldwide. No, I mean in a more
everything I
general
talk
way.
about South Africa is really about American television. Our show, South Africa Now, was about American television and what it wasn't reporting, and the censorship and
All right, yeah,
self-censorship
but so
right here.
let's generalize now. We know, I believe you, and I think anyone in America would that realize that something like
Well,
South
I've
Africa
gotten-
doesn't get reported accurately. Now, what about everything else? Like, what do you think of the war coverage, say?
Well, there's been a
And-
50% decline on coverage of the world. So when things are covered, they're usually covered either because the U.S. government or American troops are involved. They're usually covered from a pro-American government point of view. The
What they
debate-
call propaganda when the Serbs do it.
That's my point. In
Yeah,
an earlier show...
But you can't use that word here to talk about it. You don't hear...
Well, I thought it was very interesting, didn't you, when NATO demanded that the Serbian television show 3 hours of Western broadcast and put CNN on Serbian television, or we'd bomb them. When they refused to do it, we bombed them, bomb their television station. This is an extremely hypocritical approach to coverage. We've seen, in war, constantly, we've seen coverage that has been propagandistic at its core.
What do you think of the statement?
But the biggest problem
What-
is not that, Tuli. It's that television itself has become a weapon of mass distraction, of diversion, of diverting us away from what's important.
But we've always had that in our lives. People have a tendency to avoid things that are either unpleasant or boring. Now, let me come back for a second.
But look,
You hear Albright and everyone go up. We're bombing.
We're having an argument now.
This would have
folks.
been. This would have.
This is great.
I don't think it's an argument.
Well, because what I'm trying to tell you is that covering South Africa is not boring, first of all, and it's not uninteresting, but it's not being covered. Why? And when it is covered, what is covered? Crime. So your immediate reaction in your brain was South Africa crime, South Africa.
No, it's not crime. It's just the fact. What's more important is the fact that there were no socialist no steps taken towards a socialist society, which the Communist Party there, which was an ally of Mandela.
Well, I would say to you that with Mandela leaving,
that was the program.
I think with Mandela leaving, I think you're going to see an intensification of the internal debate in South Africa. We have a lot of really progressive trade unionists, people involved in civic organizations, people who've been involved in the struggle, who are fighting for a better society. And that fight is continuing inside South Africa and in the institutions in South Africa.
I wish we could say that
I don't
about
think
America.
it's as bleak, as you make it out to be.
It doesn't get reported. Okay,
there you
that's what
go.
you're saying. So, what do you think, for instance? I couldn't believe I heard this, that it's okay to bomb the Yugoslav radio TV network because what they put out is propaganda.
Well, look, the truth is that I understand that you can laugh at that, but the truth is that Serbian television under Milosevic has been a propaganda
Well, then
arm.
we should bomb the American station.
There's been a media war in...
Then we should bomb the American station, because they're also presenting the government's point of view and the ruling institution's point of view. What's the difference?
We're talking about the use of media to actually incite hatred, to incite and support ethnic cleansing, to really as an instrument of crime. I think that's true, but it's also true.
Do you listen to the reports from Brussels every day?
I've listened to the NATO briefings.
Yeah. Isn't that inciting American bombing?
It's discussing
it. It's propaganda.
It's propaganda. We're not disputing that. I'm just making a point. Things are not exactly the same, although they may have the same effect.
Yeah. All right. So the others lie more or more stupidly than Americans. So they should be bombed and killed?
Look, there's been a war for 10 years in the Balkans. The West had a slow motion response to it. They weren't really involved. People were being murdered in their homes, shot from the hills in Sarajevo every single day. And American television covered it with a bunch of sound bites, okay, and what we call bang-bang footage.
Yeah.
There was very little interpretation, very few documentaries or explanation. After 4 years of coverage of Bosnia, the New York Times and CBS News did a poll. And they asked people, who lives in Sarajevo? 59% of the people said the Serbs. Wrong. 25% said they didn't know. So people are watching images, but not learning anything from it. And that's why I'm upset.
The reporters are stupid, or they have a hidden agenda.
No, I don't think
people
so.
Are smart.
I don't think it's because of that. It's because of the format and structure of our television news.
The two things are not contradictory.
I'm not so dismissive of...
How many reports have you heard that Germany and other Western countries were very happy when Yugoslavia broke off? Because then they could control the industrial parts.
Look, if you go back into the 80s, what you see there is the IMF and the World Bank making loans to Yugoslavia. And guess who the banker was in Yugoslavia at the time? It was Milosevic. There's a history and a background to this. We might disagree, we might debate it, but that debate and that background is very rarely presented on television.
Yeah,
there have been some good...
rarely. I don't remember.
Well, there's a series called The Death of Yugoslavia, which was shown on the Discovery Channel, which was British-made and very good about what led up to the breakup of Yugoslavia.
You watch the BBC News? It's sort of better than the American.
I think the BBC, but the BBC News is driven by a public service mission, not a commercial mission. And that's the difference, and that's what we won't need here in this country.
All right, so what's the, so like we're basically talking of an alternative and, dare I say, a left-wing approach to news. And how do we...
I would like to call it a truthful approach to news. I
Well,
would like
of
to,
course,
I
we
would-
have the truth.
I would like to see some
Of
more
course, our guys
diversity
have
of
the truth.
voices on the air.
Yeah.
I don't know what left and right
All right,
means
all right,
quite
forget
anymore,
that.
in the
Well,
same way that we once
An
really understood that.
anti-American institutional, an anti-capitalist, I'm not in love with the word left. Something that opposes the American status quo. The America's
Critical
the new
thinking,
Rome.
how about that?
America-
Critical analysis, how about that?
That's too vague. America's the new Rome.
Well, I'm working on a
just
project
talking-
right now.
I was just talking,
I'm working on a project right now called the Media Channel, which is a big internet super site, which is going to bring together organizations from all over the world who are concerned about transforming the media. It's going to be www.mediachannel.org. Now, it's not up yet. We're looking for people who might be interested in working on this internet super site. We work with an outfit in England called One World Online, oneworld.org, O-R-G, to try to have this kind of debate and discussion on an ongoing basis about the media. I agree with you that obviously I'm not here to apologize for American television. I've written a whole book that's critical of it, you know.
Right,
But it's important that we don't be kind of knee-jerk about it. That's
all right,
the
so
only
is the
point.
internet just going to be the discussion room, or is it going to be...
No, it's a news service, and
All right, so include me in, okay?
okay, well, I'm up for that.
So, what's the next step?
Well, right now we're trying to raise the money to put this thing online. We're out there begging for dollars
So will you do it
and
from here?
donations. It'll be based here at Global Vision or someplace else. We're not
All
sure
right
where.
then, because I just, got a computer and I actually learned how to receive email. That's all I can do. But I can see this is just going to change.
It's already changing.
History and
It's already
change.
changing things. What makes it different? It's global. It's interactive. It involves access to layers of information more in depth than you can certainly get on television. It's filled with contradictions too. It's not the panacea.
Right.
It's not, but it is a tool that we can use to promote change. And in my book,
All right, so
I have
how would people who want to get in touch with you?
well,
you
people
have
who are
an
interested.
address?
Yes, I do. People
All
who are
right, well,
interested in
give
getting in
that
touch
address
with
to our
me.
listeners. You have 1 minute, right?
It's
2 minutes.
I'm at Global Vision. We're at 1600 Broadway, New York, 10019. I'm on email at moreuwatch, MOREUWATCH, at globalvision.org. That's my email address. Global Vision is our company. The book, The More You Watch, The Less You Know.
Oh, wait, I didn't get that. Would you repeat it, please?
The book, The More You Watch, The Less You Know, is available in many bookstores.
Yeah, but give some of the
Seven
addresses
Stories
again.
Press.
Everyone got...
More You Watch, MOREUWATCH.
EU?
WATCH, More You Watch,
Yeah.
at globalvision.org. I'd love to get the reaction of any viewers to this new breakthrough in low production television.
And